I am Megan, and this is Battle Royale with Cheese, the website where you can get all of your TV and film news, reviews and trailers. And I've finally watched VHSBeyond. This came out about a week ago on the streaming service Shudder, and I'm a huge fan of the VHS series. Granted, the entries aren't always good, but the majority of them have actually been quite solid. And I wanted to check this one out because this one takes on a more sci-fi direction, which I thought was quite interesting. VHSBeyond takes a more sci-fi route as it tells 6 stories across this landscape. These always have really vague plot lines, but what I am going to do for this one, because it's already been out for a week already, I am going to go into spoilers with this one. I'm going to fully talk about the stories that happen as well as the wraparound story. So if you haven't watched this, please go and watch it because I really enjoyed this entry. And yeah, we're going to go into spoilers pretty much straight away. So yeah, you have been warned. So the wraparound story is called Abduction or Adoption. This is directed by Jay Chill. And this is essentially a mockumentary on UFO sightings and deciphering what's real and what isn't. This one was interesting. I mean, it was enjoyable enough, and I think this is the thing with a lot of the VHS series, a lot of the anthology series and anthology films, is the wraparound story is always the difficult one to sort of get right. Because you have to have a way of figuring out, okay, why are these stories taking place, what's connecting them up, and how are you going to branch out from what your wraparound story is, what your main story is, to these other stories. And the VHS series doesn't really do that. It always kind of has this excuse of, oh okay, it's just going to be someone goes into a house or someone finds a VHS tape and then you are watching the stories and the VHS tapes that they are watching. And those are those like 4 or 5 or 6 stories. And that's how they branch things off, which I think is an easy way to do it and also a very simple way to do it, and I do appreciate the direction that they do. You have a story of a guy who moved into a house. The oldest son wanted to eventually sell the house, and he was convinced that there was hauntings or UFO sightings in this building. And then suddenly he disappears, and 2 VHS tapes are discovered, which is he was filming around the house and in his room to prove whether the hauntings were real or not, essentially. And we get to the end of this one, and you find out that these 2 tapes have been compiled together, like all the footage has been compiled together, and at the very end of the film, we're going to watch it. Turns out, yeah, he's got an alien in his house. The design's pretty cool though, to be fair. It's got like 4 pairs of eyes, like one on top of each other. It's a really, really cool design. But yeah, that one was okay. I think it was interesting enough between each stories they were sort of talking about different things. So appearance of aliens and like the stereotypical look we've given them. What we perceive as real or fake. What's like if we see something that's weird or surreal, is that alien or is that just our brains tricking us? I think it's really interesting, and actually with one of the sections, it was really cool to have the YouTube channel Corridor Crew be involved, because they've done stuff like this before, where they've done, okay, let's look at footage, is this real or fake, as well as like CGI and practical effects, and be like, okay, was that good one or not? Was it pretty terrible? How did they do that? But they've done this before with actual, footage that you'll find of so-called UFO sightings. So it actually kind of works that they would be involved with this, but that was kind of cool to see as well. So the first proper story we go into is called Stalk. This is directed by Jordan Downey, and this concerns 5 cops who are investigating a kidnapping case of babies, which leads them to this building, and what they find is zombies and, yeah, a giant stalk, alien fleshy creature. I think this one was a good opener. This one was overall fine, but it was a good opener because you needed something very sort of over the top action wise to just open things up and ease you into the film. And this was very, you know, Michael Bay action packed, short more than horror, but it was still enjoyable. But yeah, it's very much okay, this is just to ease you into things before we get to the truly creepy stuff. But this one was still really enjoyable. The only thing I had a problem with, and this is kind of my issue with the whole film, to be honest, and the found footage and anthology genre, essentially, is the filming was a little weird. So how they have done it is through police body cams. But one of them has like a date and location and stuff, but the rest of them don't seem to, or some of them do and the others don't. There is another couple of shots as well when they get to the house that is just a plain static, you know, high production shot that doesn't seem to look like it's coming from any camera. And this did feel a little out of place, actually. And I think it would have been better, actually, if the filming on a technical level and in terms of its details would have been a lot more consistent. So rather than one body cam just have like the date and location, have all of them have the same setup, I think that would have worked a lot better. But this was still enjoyable, and this was still a good opener for the film. A good action-packed way to ease you in. So the second story is called Dream Girl. This is directed by Virat Powell, and this concerns a paparazzi and his assistant as they try to gain access to this superstar's trailer and get photos of her, get candid photos of her. And this is another one where they discover, oh, hang on, things aren't what they seem. And you do get a bit of a foreshadowing even before the reveal of what's going on, when the assistant Sonu ends up hiding in this woman's trailer, and he overhears a conversation, a rather nasty conversation between her and her manager, and he eventually has to reveal that he's been hiding, apologises, and they said, you're more than what he says you are. You know, you keep exclaiming in your songs, in your Bollywood-style songs, that you're a goddess. You can be whatever you want. And at first she's like, oh, I don't know, and I'm not sure, I'm scared. And at one point she says, he made me, or he made me what I am. And yeah, this story kind of takes it to a little sense. She's a face-stealing, fleshy robot. A lot of these are kind of, and this is what I like about a lot of these stories, is that you're given one type of scenario and think, okay, well, this is what it is. And then it comes out as something completely different. And this is what I really enjoyed about these stories, is it's really expect the unexpected. Yeah, I really enjoyed this one. This was actually a really fun one. And the effects of her taking her face off to reveal the roboticness and the glowing eye underneath was fantastic. The only issue I had with this one is that, and again, this is an issue you're going to have with the shaky cam found footage technique and the aesthetic of that, is the last few minutes of the short film are way too shaky to properly see what's going on and what she really looks like. I would have liked if they had just let you linger on what she looked like just for a little bit. They did have sections at the end where she comes out, she's taken the face of the paparazzi and she's put it on her own disfigured face now, robotic face now, and she comes out to all these paparazzi cameras and you kind of see her and her weird face mask face through flashes, which was cool because I think on one side it leaves you to sort of make up in your head what she looked like, theorise what she looks like, and it lets your brain sort of take over in terms of what you're seeing. That can be creepy. For me, it didn't completely work. I feel like it would have been nice, to just have just one clear shot of her without any flashes, without any shaky cam, just because I wanted to see the effects, essentially. I wanted to actually properly look at what she looked like and the effects that they had used. But this was a really fun one. I really enjoyed this one. Third story is probably my favourite out of all of them in this film. So this was called Live and Let Dive. So this was directed by Justin Martinez. And this is essentially a group of skydivers. They are already up in the air. They're about to reach the high target altitude to jump. And one of them spots a UFO, which is then followed by 2 fighter jets. And they are forced to jump because there's essentially a fight going on in the air at the same altitude as them between a UFO and fighter jets. And they jump, and it goes from there. This one, this one was the best one, I reckon, in the entire film. I really enjoyed this one. It was really, really tense right from when you see the UFO up until the end. And this one has a couple of really good jump scares as well, especially at the end in the car. If you know, you know. There's a moment where he turns around in the car and I did not expect it. I screamed very loudly. But this one, yeah, was fantastic. I think the idea of those type of sort of jet fights happening in the air while you're supposed to jump out, you have to jump out, is terrifying. And the actual forced jump itself, that whole sequence was just amazing. It was so good because you really felt the guy who has the camera. To make this even worse, the guy who's filming that we're seeing his point of view from, it's his birthday. So, happy birthday, there's aliens. But from his point of view, he is forced to jump. They're all forced to jump as the plane explodes. And at one point he turns around to see his friend, and his friend doesn't have the parachute. I think he's the one who mentions earlier that he hasn't got his parachute set up. His leg is like amputated from below the knee. So as he's falling, he's got his leg up, and as he's falling, just blood is just shooting out. It's just like, it's a crazy image, but such an effective one. But that entire sequence is just amazing, as we can definitely sense his panic from the get-go. It's like, you have to jump, you don't have a choice, whether you got a parachute or not. Oh well. And there are a couple of his friends who just go splat onto the ground because they haven't had their parachutes set up in time, or they haven't fastened them tight enough. There's some really, really good effects in this one as well, especially with the first friends that he finds, who's had his head decapitated, can't say the word, had his head decapitated from his actual parachute strings. So there's some really gruesome, icky effects in this one. The sight of that is both horrifying and really effective. And the alien design is really cool as well. It's like this weird spider-like creature. It's like a mix of a spider and stereotypical alien design that we're used to with the oval head. It's really, really cool. And yeah, this one was amazing. So the next one was called Fur Babies. So this was written and directed by Justin Long and Christian Long. And you can tell, you can tell, essentially what this is environmental activists go to a dog daycare because they think there's something more going on in this daycare. And there definitely is. I'm going to spoil this now. If you've ever seen the film Tusk with Justin Long, I think he took some inspiration. I really think he took some inspiration for this one. This was the most disturbing one out of all of them. And if Live and Let Dive was the most tense one, this was definitely the most disturbing one. And I had my jaw open for a lot of this, in just shock and awe of what I was seeing. And there isn't really much else to say with this one, to be honest, aside from great effects, really gruesome body horror. This one's essentially what they find is the lady in charge of the daycare is a front, and she's actually creating human-dog hybrids. So yeah, she's slowly turning humans into dogs, and you do see a final result of that, and it is horrifying. It's very much in the same vein of Tusk. I think Justin Long definitely took some inspiration from that. Libby Letlow plays Becky, the owner of the daycare, and she is so creepy. There's a lot of times where she'll act friendly and then it's like she notices something or she's trying to hush something up, and the glare that she gives people is just really creepy and disturbing. There's even a moment at the beginning where she notices the camera that the activists have sneaked into the place, and she just stares at the camera for an uncomfortably long time. It is really creepy. But yeah, definitely get some inspiration from Misery, from Stephen King's Misery, as well as Tusk with Michael Parks' character, Howard Howe. There's definitely a lot of inspiration there, and it's really, really telling. It's really obvious. But yeah, this one was definitely really disturbing. And I think while I actually really enjoyed it, being a fan of body horror myself, this is the one that actually stuck out the most for me, because the others had some kind of sci-fi aspect to them, whereas this one was more leaning into the body horror and actual gory horror rather than anything else. But I still really enjoyed it. You know, give me something that's along the lines of Tusk. I'm happy. And the last short we had was Stowaway. So this is directed by Kate Sagal and written by Mike Flanagan. And this is to do with a filmmaker who is trying to figure out whether these UFO sightings in this town are real. She wants to try and capture them. And she finds essentially a spaceship. And the spaceship design was really, really cool. It was like this rippling, shimmering, gooey wall that opened up when she went near it. I'm trying really hard to describe how it looked, but it was really, really unique. The inside of the ship itself was unique from what I could see. And when she goes in, she accidentally cuts her finger and discovered that the ship has these nanobots that help fix her wound. So they help fix and heal things, and she discovers that the ship also has containers of animal samples and animals, and occasionally the nanobots go to them. And what I liked about this one was that in this one the aliens weren't actually threatening, the nanobots were not threatening, they were just doing their job. And later on in the film she discovers that she's not on Earth anymore and the ship is about to enter warp speed. She essentially gets obliterated because she's not strapped into anything, and the nanobots try to fix her. The problem with that is that we do see an alien creature earlier in the film, and she hides away. So because the alien hasn't seen her, the nanobots themselves don't know what she is supposed to look like. They don't know what a human looks like. So they try to fix her, and she mutates, and they keep trying to fix her, and she mutates, and at one point she has they're like spider-like eyes all across her face. It was horrific. And then her arm and her hands at one point are like really long claws, really long talons, because they don't know what a human looks like. And I think that's what I liked about this one is like I said earlier, there wasn't actually any threat. They were just trying to do their job. The problem is they don't know what a human looks like. So it's just trying to do the best it can. This one was really interesting in concept, but I think this was also the weakest one. Mainly because once she went into the ship, it went into black and white. Not really night vision, but it was black and white, but like a weird black and white. So all the lights were very reflective. They had that flare against them. And it did make it difficult to see a lot of the time, to be honest. I couldn't really figure out what was going on half the time, which does make it difficult when the film is trying to shock you or scare you. I also didn't understand why the film kept interjecting occasionally with clips of the main character's birthday party when she was little. So it starts off with that. It starts off with a clip of her birthday party from when she's a little girl, and it keeps interjecting with that, and I didn't really know what the point of that was. I know that earlier in the film, before she discovers the ship, she's talking about how when you go into warp speed, or if you travel across space, then time works differently. And I don't know if this was the film's way of saying, yeah, like she's going to age more, she's going to change from what she originally used to look like and used to be when she was a child. I don't know if that's what it was trying to say, I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, interesting idea, but definitely the weakest one of the film. That and maybe the wraparound story, which is usually the weaker one in these films. That's fine. You kind of need a way to connect them all up in some way, or to at least branch out and find a way to go, okay, here's the next story. So it didn't really bother me too much, but I think Stowaway was an interesting idea, but I don't think they should have changed it to like this really weird sort of darker black and white, because it did make it very difficult to see what was going on. But overall, I really enjoyed VHSBeyond. It was a really, really good entry. The effects are always fantastic, especially the practical effects and the gore. They're always brilliant. Even if the short themselves aren't always very strong, the effects and the gore is always really well done, and I like that they are able to find unique and interesting stories, despite this being the 5th or 6th film in the series. I think that's really, really cool, and really holds to the fact that this franchise is still going strong. I hope it continues to go on, because I really enjoyed them, and this one was no exception. My favourite short was definitely Live and Let Dive, and I think the weakest one was the last one, which was Stowaway. But I was Megan, this is Battle Royale with Cheese. See you soon.